Everyone, welcome to another video for market next week. I will be highlighting some key events and a game plan for next week. But before we begin this video, I want to remind you that anything that we say or on this channel is not financial advice, and you should do your own due diligence, and we are only expressing our opinions. So with that being said, let's begin this video. And like I said, this disclosure is important, but everyone should do their own research. They should do their own due diligence. I'm not recommending you to buy anything. You can make your own decisions. And yeah, we just have to, protect ourselves from anyone out there that wants to just are so happy people. Okay, let's get started. So I want to highlight a few things. I'm going to be highlighting few key earnings coming up for this upcoming week of this is September 30th. Yeah, so upcoming week. So expiration on October 5th. So a lot of times I'll be talking about weekly options, and I'll be talking about earnings coming up. And so let's get started. So this week we have few key earnings, but I would like to highlight Pepsi. Pepsi has earnings coming up this week on Tuesday. Paycheck has coming up earnings. Costco has earnings, and Constellation Brands. So I would like to highlight some of those things. I'll also highlight some resources I use. So for example, I use TradingView and I use Market Chameleon, and from those resources are very powerful because this is a data-driven world and we want to use past data to make a lot of our trades. And I will be also talking about individual options activity that I use to make trades for the coming week. Let's get started. So the first one I will go on about is Pepsi. So everyone knows what Pepsi is, and it's a great company. Obviously, beverage market is very concentrated, I would say. Coca-Cola and Pepsi control over 50% of the market, and it's moving towards less and less sugary drinks. But they're diversifying into those brands and they're hedging against their sugary drinks. But those are obviously not they're like Naked or something like that. So let's get started. Coca-Cola, so whenever I do earnings, I look for earning plays, and then I would look for other companies, similar companies that are like those companies, because you don't want to always expect the biggest play. So for example, let's go for Pepsi, right? So this is Market Command, and you search for you search for the stock, and here one of the cool things is you can do similar stocks, and it will give you stocks that are similar in their performance, price change, monthly change, 6 months change, and 1 year change in the market cap. So if we go by market cap, Pepsi is the second highest and Coca-Cola highest. So we could look at, instead of playing Pepsi earnings, we could play Coca-Cola as a side, and because it's going to have an effect on Coca-Cola stock as well. So just looking at Coca-Cola, we can also look at earnings here and look at past earnings and how the performance has been. So as you can see, it's fairly unvolatile stock, and during after earnings, 2-3%, 2% is the expected move most of the time, and the stock moves about that much percent, 1-2%. So it's not that significant, but you can still make a lot of money doing options play and those sort of things. So one thing that I look for is earning stocks patterns, and this will give you how the stock has performed prior to earnings, the few days prior to the earnings. So for example, one day before the earnings, the average return 0.1%. 2 days before, it's 0%. So sometimes you can find some stocks that have 2 weeks earnings that are great. So Market Chameleon has there's a really cool resource where you can actually screen for these and find ones that work really well, and you can get those. And it's you're not taking that much of a risk. You know that in the past this has happened, and you sell before the earnings. You don't have to wait for the earnings and get jammed up a lot of times. So, and they also highlight average price close 7 days in a row, 1.2%, drift open to close, down 1 week before earnings, 2.1 on average, right? So six in a row, it has been down. Let's see this time, has it been down before the earnings? Yeah. So this is 1 day performance. So right before earnings, it's been down fewer days. Let's look at 2 weeks before earnings, right? 14 days out. Yeah, it's been about the same, but it's still market's been ripping up lately. So let's look at some strategies that we can use. So the average strategy returns 22%, 75% win rate. So that's pretty decent, right? So you can do a short delta call, or you can do short at the money call. You can do a straddle, and these type of things have amount of returns and how they worked in the past. Short at the money puts, if you do that, they seem to have very great winning numbers and good amount of returns, average return. You can do that play. So if you want to do earnings play, these might be a good idea. Now, these are day of the earning. Yeah, so day before. So you would have to buy these Monday before the earnings. You should have bought these earlier, but so Pepsi isn't a great options play right now, but this is something you could keep in mind. You can do buying options instead of selling, right? So selling, there aren't that many great plays, so I wouldn't do any. But this is great resource to look at how past earnings have been, and you can find great results doing this. I would use this often. Okay, so this also gives you the performance and the exact numbers for past few earnings as well. So this is a great resource. Let's look at let's look at the option chains and how they have been going about. So the October 5th, as you can see, the I'm going to look at for the highest open interest is for 112 puts, and the most active puts are the 111, and the most active calls are 115. So let's look at what's the price. Right now the price is 111. So this is let's see how the earnings goes, right? And I expect the earnings to be good. I think they'll be great, but obviously it can go either way. But I think earnings for the Pepsi this week will be good. How else, if you want to manage risk, you could do Coca-Cola instead, and I recommend that. I don't recommend. I recommend I recommend playing Coca-Cola instead of Pepsi, that sort of thing. So I would not recommend going just for Pepsi. Let's look at the options order sentiments lately. So it's been bullish, 5 day average bullish, 30-day average bullish. So it has a bullish sentiment. Well, obviously the market has been bullish lately as well, but the the percent of the contracts, 83% of the contracts, and total contracts, it's been just great. So option money's been flowing into Coca-Cola, so you can indirectly pay Coca-Cola instead of Pepsi. So you can do things like that. So what are the other ones that are coming up this week? Let's look at the way the chart. So money's been flowing into Pepsi. So this is a money flow index. So obviously, if it's green, that means their money's flowing into the stock. And this is a momentum index, so how the momentum of the stock is going, and the pink dots, right? Pink dots show if the Kettler channels and Bollinger bands are within each other, and those you generally indicate a breakout after those things, after the Bollinger bands get out of the Kettler channel. So we've been seeing money flow into Pepsi in the past few days, obviously, but market has been just on a bull run. So other ones that you could play, Monster. Prime Water, Prima Water, sorry. So Prima Water is one that has a greater revenue growth over earnings yield. However, Monster might be a better if you're looking for EBITDA growth and greater margins and those sort of things. So those are another ones you could look into using Market Chameleon or any other resource, but I recommend Market Chameleon. I think it's a great resource. Another Constellation brand, STZ, it's been doing really well, and obviously the Bollinger Bands are also inside Kettler channels, so it's indicating a breakout, but it's going to be very volatile this week, obviously, because of earnings. Another great company has earnings coming up is Costco. Costco Costco is great, obviously, right? So if you've ever been to Costco, you just want to be there. And I like companies where I can go whose products I buy. Those are great companies, and I look more into it. Do you think Costco? Let's look at Costco. So you could play Walmart. You can play instead of Costco. You can play other ones. But let's look at the earnings for Costco. Past earnings. The price, yeah. So generally 2-3%, 2-3% movement on the stock implied change, and the earning stock movement. Here we go. So 3 days before it's 0.3%, 0.3%. So these sort of returns are pretty good when you find some that are 2 weeks out and they generally move into earnings. These are safe plays a lot of times. Let's look at some option strategies. You could do selling options is a great way to make money during options, but options is very risky, obviously, right? Selling options generally has good returns during earnings times. Buying out of money puts also, in this case, has good returns. 3 out of 25% is not that great of a winning strategy, but they're not. It doesn't look like there are any strategies that are great in terms of buying options and selling options. There are. Obviously, I would be careful because selling options is very risky. Let's look at the order sentiment. It's been about 50-50. So there's no signal here, but it's 50-50. So I would be careful going into this earnings. Do your research. Do you think let me know in the comments. Do you think the earnings for Costco are going to be great? Another thing coming up is Friday. We have the job reports. So expect a volatile day on Friday. Obviously, because of it's Friday, a lot of times the options are very volatile, and in the morning the premium is jacked up. But be careful on Friday because there's jobs report, and once that comes out, that's going to create a volatile market. Other things I will be talking about today is some tools you can use to make look for good calls. So for example, I use unusual options activity. So for example, let me show you. So on September 21st, there was for unusual option activity. I'm looking for. So a lot of times when there's unusual option activity, everyone follows. So you can hit good amount of returns when you do these type of plays. So let's look at high relative volatility volume compared to other ones. A lot of times I have no idea some of these companies are, but they look more into it, and if you think it's a good idea, they might be a good idea. And if you see a small cap company that has high options activity, think about why that might be. So BKLN, let's look at, they had a high options activity last Friday. And if you can see on 21st, it had high options activity. On Monday, also money has been flowing in a lot lately. And Friday might have not been the right time to buy. On Monday, if you would have bought and throughout the day, you could have made a lot of money. And actually, it didn't move that much. It's a few cents, but yeah, it's low volume stock. No, not a good play. It wouldn't have turned out good. Denny's. Let's look at Denny's, right? uh, moved up quite a few percentages from Friday, and this is another type of play that you could have done. So look for unusual opportunist activity and how the call. Oh, so this one had a puts, obviously, right? I didn't even recognize. Sorry, this had puts, a lot of puts. So this person who on Friday, whoever bought, had made so much money if they would have exercised so sold their options on, sold their puts on the one if they bought puts on Friday and then Monday it just dropped a few pennies. But yeah, it doesn't look like that much of a movement, but it looks like a lot relative to the general volatility. And yeah, so look for that. This is a good way to look. Let's look on September 28th. Some stocks I would be looking out for this week, and I'll just keep an eye on is SiriusXM, BlackBerry, uh, Yum Brands. I wonder when Yum Brands earnings are coming up. Yum Brands. Oh yeah, they have a little bit. Oh wow, this stock's been fantastic in the last few days. Wow, it's been performing really well. Oh, also this is the ADX trailing stop. So below this, I wouldn't recommend buying a stock. Above this, I think it could go on a bull run. So let's look at. Yeah, not that great. I don't see anything special. Yeah, I mean 2 weeks out you can get 1.3% return. You can also do a lot of screens where you can do bull call spreads, option spreads, earnings. So earnings stock pattern screener. So what we're looking at right now. So this is earnings stock pattern. You can do a screener. So let's look at 12 observer win rate of above 80%. And we want to look at something that's in next 10, 20 days. We'll look at next 10 days. Let's do, right? And we're going to look for a time frame 3 days before, right? We don't want to hold too much win rate. So yeah, some of these take a look at some of these, research them. They have earnings coming up in October, and they 3 days prior to the earnings they have good returns. And let's look at you can also look the day of the earnings move and see how often the ones like number of observance 83%, average return 1.3. So HIFS usually does well on earnings. And opening gap you can screen for. So this is fantastic when it comes to looking for earnings. One day before you can screen for, and we can look for more than that in next 20 days. And average return that's higher. Pets, yeah, there's some of these are fantastic. So take a look at this website, find some place. Let me know if you find something amazing next week for next week, and do some screeners. They have a premium trial going on. It's just 1 week, but if you like it, you can take a look. And yeah, so those are some of the things I'm highlighting for this week. I'm also keeping an eye out on Coca-Cola, obviously, like I said, and I'm also keeping an eye out on Ulta. I believe Ulta Beauty will have a breakout this week. Uh, After their earnings, they got saved by Kylie Jenner, and they did, yeah. So they did pretty good. So I'm looking for a breakout next week for they've had a lot of they've had a lot of order sentiment flow. Good luck this week, guys. Let me know in the comments of what you thought the video was like. Let me know about any plays you guys are thinking about and how they turned out. Thank you. Bye. Have a good week.